Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Well, today we're going to start a new series about cooking out of your pantry, because if you won't eat what's in the pantry, then it does no good to put it up. Today it's cabbage and meatballs. We start off with a warm skillet. Here's 2 pounds of cabbage out of our freezer. You can go back to 2020 and watch us put it up. We're going to put this entire 2 pounds in there. That's a warm skillet. The skillet's getting warm. It's not all done yet. Now, there's a lot of different things that you can do, but this is one of the easiest dishes, and everything comes right out of the pantry. We're going to give it a little salt. Matter of fact, we're going to give it a pretty good amount of salt. You can salt it more at the table if you like. I just use a salt shaker. Then, after we get the salt in, the next thing out of our pantry is going to be that good old-fashioned black pepper. And you want to have plenty of it. Now, this stuff is what makes the dish, all right? And you want to set that grind on large, not fine grind. When I started it here, it was on a fine grind, but we want to put it on large. And you want to put plenty of black pepper in here, because it's going to come out so good. Next, we want to put some of Crystal's good sweet banana peppers, pickled banana peppers. I'm going to use almost an entire pint here. I'm going to reserve a few back for eating, but I'm going to use part of the juice too to help this cabbage be flavored. Set your heat on high, and then you want to put about 3/4 of a cup of water. We put our cabbage up in 2-pound allotments, so this is about just right for a couple of meals. You cover that, and we're going to bring it to a boil. Once it's about ready to boil, then you want to stir everything in. This cabbage is going to take a little while. If you want to make a fast meal, don't get it out of your pantry. Most pantry meals are pretty quick, have to be done for a pretty good amount of time. So stir it up, recover it, and plan for it to cook for a while. Now, while we're waiting for that pantry meal, for that cabbage to cook, let's make a little cornbread. I'm not going to make a whole pan of cornbread. We start off with just 1 cup of cornmeal mix, Martha White, and I'm going to use powdered milk, because that's out of our pantry. Powdered milk, and you'll need 4 tablespoons of powdered milk and 1 cup of cornmeal mix. Having a little trouble with the bag. There's our 4 tablespoons of milk. Now we need an egg, and you could use a powdered egg here and just add water, but I have some regular eggs, so I'm going to do that. Powdered egg actually does really well. Now, and then 3/4 of a cup of water, and I'm going to reserve back a little water because I think 3/4 of a cup might be a little bit big, might be a little too much. So you take a fork, and you want to get that stirred up good. Know that cornmeal is going to hide in the corners of those bowls, so I like to use a fork instead of a spoon. Sometimes you can't get down into the corners with a spoon, but you can with a fork. So get that cornmeal all stirred up. If you'll notice, it looks like it's probably a little too runny, so I'll probably need to add a little more cornmeal, but that's okay. That's the whole point, is you can add a little more cornmeal if you need to. So we'll just add just a little more cornmeal. And then stir that in. And we're looking for a consistency kind of like cake batter. You know, not too thick, but not too thin either. So we want to get that good and stirred up, everything moved around. Make sure to rub those sides down really good. And then what we're going to do is, once it's reached the consistency that pretty much stays on your fork when you lift the fork up, okay, see it doesn't fall through, that's what you want. Now we're going to let this set for about 15 minutes. Now while that's setting, take a little vegetable oil and spritz your pan. If this had been a complete, of course we have vegetable oil in the pantry, but it would be lard if it was in another format. But oil's fine, get it heated up. Now while that's heating, let's go ahead and add our hamburger to our cabbage. The cabbage has started to boil and everything is not frozen anymore. You know, the cabbage was frozen when I put it in there. Just take that hamburger, this is 80-20, came out of the freezer, I've let it set and completely thaw, and just put it right, break it up into handfuls and just put it right down in there. Doesn't matter if some of the pieces are little, that doesn't make any difference. Then all you want to do, don't stir it, just cover it up and let that cook. Now, once our pan is hot, we can start making our corn fritters. I'm just going to make 2. That's about what this will make, is 2 of them. You just pour it in there and let that start to heat up. Now, you know when it's starting to get ready when you see these bubbles start to break. So now you can flip that fritter right over without it coming all apart. If you flip it too soon, it'll throw it everywhere. Now, it's easy to do that. You know, I've even been known to do it, so it's not a terrible mistake. Now that there's a roll and boil going on, now we can turn our cabbage and our meatballs together. This is going to take a while to cook. You want to cook it till that cabbage is starting to get tender but not falling apart. Now back to our fritter. It's been on there. Let's see if it looks like it's good. I would say we could probably get this thing off here without too much trouble, and it's going to be cooked all the way through. See, it even might be a little overly done, but it's not too done. It's not burnt, so we're good to go. Now, I'm going to add the rest of the batter and finish up my 2 fritters. 2 fritters is about right for 3 meals, so I'll probably get 3 meals out of this cabbage and meatballs. So 2 fritters will make me good for 3 meals. Now back to our cabbage. It's boiling good, so I just want to cock that lid so some of this liquid can boil out of here. And just to show you I'm not always perfect, I was too soon to turn this fritter. I was in too big a hurry and it wasn't done enough. And that's what happens when it's not done enough, but it'll cook just fine, just like it is. Now it's time to remove the lid, and we want this to cook down so that part of the juice is gone. You'll notice that we're getting down there. There's not a whole lot of juice left, but there's still some. But what you really want to do is you want to take your fork and test your cabbage and make sure it's the tenderness that you want. If it's not tender enough, you need to cook it longer. If it's you don't want it to be falling apart, but if it's not tender enough, you need to cook it longer. This one feels like it's about right, so I think it's time to go ahead and plate it up. Use a slotted spoon so you're leaving all that excess juice where it is. And make sure you get some of the cabbage and some of the meatballs. Remember, this is going to be enough for 3 meals, so you don't want to use all of that meat to start with. Okay, here we are. I've got some onion. Going to open some of Crystal's hamburger dill chips that she made. Got those out of the pantry. Of course, I think they were in the refrigerator. They were already open. But add some of those. I've got the cornbread. and the cabbage and a couple of onions sliced. And that's a complete meal. You know, it's going to be all that you need. Now, if you haven't noticed, I use these Duke's mayonnaise jar lids. It keeps you from getting your rings all rusty in the refrigerator. If you're going to put something in the fridge, you can use a mayonnaise jar lid, and it sure saves you a lot of trouble. Now, this is a complete meal. If it's done right, the cabbage will be just fork tender. The hamburger will be cooked through. It's not overly spiced. Now, if you don't, I try not to put too much salt to begin with. Crystal doesn't like a lot of salt in hers, but for me, I like a little more salt than she does, but you can always add salt at the table. It doesn't detract from the meal at all. And for this one, I think it needs just a little bit more salt. So let's see if we can't put a little more salt on it, and that ought to take care of the rest of it. Now, if you like this stuff, this homesteading, do-it-yourself kind of thing, be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. We do this homesteading stuff every week, sometimes 1, sometimes 5 videos. Just depends on what's going on in the homestead that week. Now, if you hit the little bell when you come to the channel, it'll notify you when we upload a video. We upload every Sunday. Now, with that being said, it's time for me to get on to the next thing.